have been at a standstill since the election began. But let me come to you, Mark, because we continue looking at the gravity of the statements and the claims being made by the opposition. And Alex keeps bringing up the issue of observers. You know, the observers say those 100%, you know, free, fair and credible elections. But in your view, you know, with the dispute, with the claims that have been brought by NASA, what does that say about the role of observers in this electoral process?
First, I have to explain the electoral environment and what is expected both in law and in custom when you go into an electioneering period. First, you need to understand that there's the referee called the IEBC in this particular case, who's supposed to be neutral and provide a platform upon which every political party and political participant is able to have their votes counted correctly, and the people who are voting are able to vote in a safe, secure, and in a private manner. Then you've got political party agents. Now, the work of the agents is to make sure that whatever the IEBC is doing is what is actually being recorded as fact by the tallying process. Then you've got the observers who, at the various levels and the various processes of an election, observe. That's why you've got observers who are in the country from April and observers who came in a day or two before the election. When you understand that, then it means that when an observer comes and says that from the beginning of campaigns until now I have been here, this is what I have seen. Right. That observer needs to be taken seriously, because we know in Africa where there have been issues, like in the Gambia or in Zimbabwe, they've always come out and said there were issues. In fact, in 2013, they did come out to say there were issues, actually aiding the case that court then put in court. So it is a funny game when you say in 2013 the observers said the truth, but now they have lied, when by and large it's the same organizations. So the work of an observer is to look at the electoral process and give his verdict based on the fact that this observer has observed elections before, and in this particular case, these are people who've also won and lost elections. Both John Kerry, Thabo Mbeki, and John Dramani Mahama have been part of the elective process. And that their say in this particular election cannot be wished away. And in that same breath, what the challenge then becomes and behooves of NASA is, can they come to a position where they can tell the Republic that these 8 issues that are unaddressed are this. Because of the lack of those issues, the people who are out there on the street are saying, no Raila, no peace, because they do not have a basis to say that this is the reason upon which we are demonstrating. They're simply demonstrating because in their hearts they have a feeling that they have been betrayed. But is there proof of that betrayal? Not yet. Now, is it important for NASA to come up with that truth? I'm telling them now, if they have that truth, it is the best thing for this nation to bring it forward so that we can have a better election next time. That is why we have this entire process.
All right, Alex, I'll come to you, but let me hear from Dismas. I mean, do you agree with Mark? I mean, where does the electoral process stop for the observers? Because as it is, I've already said, the process was 100% free, fair and credible. But we also have these claims that are being brought by the opposition, and the country is still dealing with after the observers have already left the country. I mean, you know, many are asking, shouldn't they stay until the entire process and the disputes are resolved?
Well, the people leading those observer groups in Kenya are men of high international standing. When you look at John Kerry, he's not a guy who just comes from the woodwork to give an opinion. You know, they've had teams in Kenya for the longest time. I've actually even had the opportunity of interacting with the Qatar team 1 year ago, when they came to Kenya and they wanted to understand and really understand the nuances facing our electoral process. Well, there are those observers who come at day 2, but you know, it depends on your long-term interest in Kenya, whether you want to give an independent view or whether you just want to witness on the material day. But the most important thing to realize, when they were giving the reports they gave were interim reports. So it's not the final report. They said the final report will come much later. And that final report, in my view, should be used to make sure that the election for 2022 is better. Because, you know, during every electoral cycle, you need to improve on it. But now, looking at what the comments they gave in the interim report was actually on the voting day. They said the voting was free, fair, and credible. That when people woke up in the morning to go and cast cast their ballot, nobody was intimidated. And I recall in one media conference, a journalist asking President Mahama of Ghana, or rather retired President Mahama of Ghana, whether he believes that the hacking is actually true or maybe that's suspicion. He gave a very good answer. He said that as observers, they don't have a capacity to do investigation. So he said that he's not able to comment on that issue. But John Kerry went the extra mile, because I think John Kerry probably, the Carter Foundation or the Observer Group he's leading, has got more capacity. And he gave a challenge, although he didn't use names, but he gave a challenge to NASA. He said, you've made claims that hacking has taken place. Please place on the table evidence to confirm that in fact hacking has taken place. That was the first challenge. And then number two, if hacking has taken place, also place evidence on the table to confirm that it has compromised the quality of this election. Now, in my view, those are the issues that NASA is supposed to present at the Supreme Court. And those are some of the issues that they presented to IBC. But IBC said, we are going to respond to these issues afterwards, after making a declaration. And you see, the main issue you're supposed to look at in this conversation, or maybe as we make progress, this thing is not about President Kenyatta, who has been declared winner. It's not about Raila Odinga, who is saying that this election was fraud, that it was not free, fair, and credible. This election is about Wanjiku. The people being interviewed in Nakuru, they want to go back to their business. People want to go back to their normal life, but they are not able to do that. And my suggestion is that as we make progress, as we mature as a democracy, we need to look at IBC, whether or not it's got capacity to handle these issues. And when you look at the returning officers, and this has been discussed elsewhere, I think there's a case of having now 3 county returning officers. You have one returning officer for the presidential election, another one for the county elections, another one for MCA and for the MPs, so that you don't have issues. Because, you know, IBC admitted that a number of the returning officer said they were facing some challenges using the machines they were given. And I think maybe it's time that we look at the human resource capacity of IBC. Instead of having so many temporary staff, we make sure that they've got a sufficient workforce and they're kept busy, they're given fresh ideas through the 5-year period, so that you do not employ people and then you take them through a crash program for 3 weeks or 3 months. Then at the end of the day, they're not able to deliver. Because it was very disappointing that you get some returning officers calling the commissions, asking for passwords, asking for passcodes, that they're unable to scan this thing. But Michelle, at the end of the day, people have taken positions, people are making statements that are pro-Jubilee, maybe because they've already won. Others are making statements that are pro-NASA because they are feeling bitter. But at the end of the day, we need to ask ourselves, what serves the interest of this nation called Kenya? What serves the interest of the nation called Kenya is that when you are invited to go and cast your ballot should count. And the person who has won, in this case, President Kenyatta, has been declared a winner. When IBC declares that President Kenyatta is the winner, the people who have been beaten, the losers, they should go home knowing that we put up a very good challenge, but President Kenyatta got majority of the votes, so that you are able to concede and go peacefully. All right,
Alex, I want to come to you, especially with regard to in the wake of these, the fact that NASA has disputed the results. What possible scenarios will the country be looking at? But hold that thought. Let's take a look at the situation in Mombasa, where our Francis Mtalaki is, of course, standing by to give us the latest from there. Mtalaki, what is the situation in Mombasa? Several protests were reported last night.
Well, good morning, Michelle. And here in Mombasa, it is calm, and we can be able to see some of the business that have been